Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. As you can see from Wulfrik the Wanderer, we're here today with Norska, going to be taking on the High Elves. So let's get to the army compositions. Wulfrik's going to be on a horse here. Let's go ahead and look at his ability loadout. We've cut Foe Seeker, we've just got Sea Fang, Fight or Die, Hunter of Champions, and we've also brought the Sword of Torvald. In terms of the rest of the army composition, my caster is going to be a Famir, Balefiend, Lore of Shadows. We've got Enfeebling Foe, Melkos, Mystifying Miasma, and the Penumbral Pendulum. The idea here is elite tier halberds are typically pretty good against Norska, and by using the Penumbral Pendulum in conjunction with the Sea Fang, we have that double wind spell, can try and clean up elite tier halberds that way. We've got some Norscan Ice Wolves and the Beasts of Tashnar. For an infantry line, we've got Marauders mixed with Marauder Berserkers, Brutes of the Hound in the center. We've also got the Regiment of Renown, Marauders, I believe, maybe not, just regular Marauders, looks like all across the board. 1 unit of Marauder Javelins, and of course 2 units of Famir, 1 Famir with Great Weapons, and we've also got the other Famir is the Regiment of Renown, Miststalkers. Famir tend to be very strong in a multitude of matchups, and this is particularly one of them. You'll tend to face a lot of physical resistance and heavy armor, so the magic damage, armor sundering, and armor piercing of the Famir is very nice. Of course, the Regiment of Renown Miststalkers do have stock, cause fear and terror, and all Famir have that 22% missile resistance with the From the Miss ability. And yeah, we've also got some Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. For the High Elves, we've got 3 units of Illyrian Reaver Archers, one of which is the Regiment of Renown Heralds of the Wind. Definitely like these guys, pretty much an auto-include in almost any High Elf army. In terms of the infantry line here, we've got Spearmen out of the flanks, 2 Phoenix Guard, and the Pure Main Company in the center. We've also got 2 Lothern Sea Guard. Alariel is going to be the Lord, I guess lady, for the High Elves. She's up here on her eagle. And they've also brought a noble on a chariot here, so very interesting. Looking to get some work done probably against the light infantry of the Norskins there. Let's go ahead and take a look at Lariel's loadout just briefly before we get things underway here. She's got Banishment, Foz Protection, and Earthblood. Okay, so a pretty decent kit. I agree with all those spell selections. So let's kick the battle into full gear. We'll watch as things unfold. You can see the Illyrian Reavers kind of just chewing away at Marauders on the flank. This is fine with me. They honestly probably should be shooting at those Marauder Berserkers instead. But the High Elf Noble's going to come in here. We're going to hit him with the Enfeebling Foe and then immediately follow up with the Balefiend. And he's going to hit these Brutes of the Hound here, but looks like a Banishment being called up. A little bit misplaced there. Should have probably been a little bit closer, but it is going to end up doing a little bit of damage here. It's also probably a little bit of a mistake to drop this. We're actually able to push the Noble just outside of the Star of Averlorn's area of effect there, so you can see he's taking a lot of damage. The armor is going to be sundered by that Famir Balefiend, and then the Brutes of the Hound there should be able to take it out relatively effectively. Meanwhile, mainline engagements going underway. You can see Sea Fang's going to be busting it up here. It'll do a severe amount of damage to these lighter spearmen. It won't do as much against the Phoenix Guard, but it does do some damage. It's not anything crazy. You can see Famir combining with the Berserkers here, and Famir tend to struggle against elite tier halberds if they're not supported, but when you support them with Berserkers like this, they sunder the armor. Of course, you can see the Phoenix Guard down to 70 armor, and then that allows the Berserkers to get some more effective hits in. Likewise, the Famir with their armor piercing and their magic damage will be able to cut through the physical resistance of these Phoenix Guards, so it's not necessarily going to be the best trade in the world, but we should be able to punch through, especially with the support of those wind spells. We've got the Hounds chasing around Illyrian Reavers out on the flank. Now we're going to be collapsing into the rear area. You can see the terror from those Miststalkers does take hold on lower tier, spears. The Marauders are going to be collapsing into the back line there. And yeah, this mainline fight is going to pretty well go in our favor. You can see the Famir with Great Weapons fighting in here against the Pure Main Company. And meanwhile, the Balefiend's in here with the Brutes of the Hound and so on, cutting through these Phoenix Guard. We did manage to surround this High Elf Noble who escaped earlier with the Hounds. However, I figure we need to shut down these Lothern Sea Guard as quickly as possible. We've shut down this unit in the back line just with the plain old Marauders. This is going to be very cost inefficient for the Lothern Sea Guard to take this melee engagement. Again, you can see the terror going down. We also had dropped an Enfeebling Foe on that Phoenix Guard just to put its combat stats in the pits, so they wouldn't do as much damage. Another banishment going down, that one a little bit better, but we are going to be able to finish off those Phoenix Guard. I didn't quite catch it either, but I did drop a Penumbral Pendulum in that front line as well. Milk Cost Mystifying Miasma going down on those Heralds of the Wind, just starting to dish out a little bit of damage on them. If anything, we can try and drop that Martial Prowess before they are able to charge into melee combat, but at this point the infantry fight has just disintegrated so badly for the High Elves that yeah, it's going to be pretty rough. Alarielle, despite how much healing she can put out, didn't quite use it effectively, and perhaps didn't quite use it in the right situations. I think it probably would have been better to save it, rather than using it on that overextended Noble there, save it and use it on the Phoenix Guard, because that's really where you're going to win your bread here. Lead tier halberds tend to be pretty good against Norska, but I do think with the double wind spell you can help clean them up, certainly support some Famir and Berserkers in the front line, so that is going to be victory for Norska. Well played, my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. We are going to be taking a look at one more Norska replay after this, since this one was relatively short, but let's go ahead and take a look at the end screen. We'll watch what happens. So, yeah, 31 kills on Wulfrik between the stuff he did in melee and that one Seafang, 44 on the Balefiend Lore of Shadows. These two in tandem are of incredibly strong heroic core, because you can stack the Hunter of Champions with Enfeebling Foe on an enemy heroic unit. You have the double wind because you have the Seafang and Penumbral Pendulum. Just gives you so much utility, especially if you're using them together. Like if you have Wulfrik on a horse or something and you're sundering their armor, because he doesn't have the greatest AP values. If you have the Famir in there also hitting sundering armor, then Wulfrik will be more effective. Same idea with the Marauders and the Famir themselves. But yeah, overall the build worked pretty well. I do need to try it a little bit more to see if this is the best way to go as Norska. I mean, obviously there's a lot of different ways to play Norska. Their main strategy is to sort of run at you, but they have a lot of variations in what they can bring in that strategy. But I definitely think that layering Famir with Berserkers is very strong, and then this heroic core of Wulfrik and a Shadow Balefiend is also very strong. For my opponent, the Phoenix Guard did pretty well. One of them kind of got mashed a little bit there by the double wind, and then just the Famir with great weapons running in there. The Illyrian Reavers are a good pick, but they weren't necessarily used super effectively. You definitely want them shooting at these more valuable Berserkers. These guys also don't have missile block chance. So, yeah, a little bit better play from them would have been nice. Although, another thing you can do, especially with the Heralds of the Wind, because they're very fast, and I didn't have that many fast attack units to respond, they could have gone in on the flanks and potentially, you know, got in some cheeky little charges against lower tier light troops like Marauders. They can actually do pretty effectively, just kind of doing those little hit and run charges. But overall, I think my opponent's build is pretty solid. I'd probably cut the Noble on the Chariot and just either bring him on a horse or don't bring him at all, and try and cut things down to bring another Phoenix Guard, just because these guys are really going to be where you get your performance against Norska. But let's go ahead and jump to another game here. So this time, I'm going to be taking Wulfrik and a Shadow Balefiend once again. You can see almost an identical build. This time we've just traded out a couple of things. We have no Hunters with Javelins and no Marauders with Throwing Axes, but instead we've got 2 Hounds. We've also upgraded one of the Marauders to the Icehorn Marauders, so they should be a bit better in melee. And yeah, other than that, build is almost exactly the same as before. We've got Wulfrik on a horse, Shadow Balefiend, Famir with great weapons, and the Miststalkers, and yeah, Norscan Warhounds out to the side. Let's go ahead and take a look at this Empire build. We've got the Hammer of Witches up here. We've also got a front line of State Troops, Swordsmen mixed with Spearmen with shields. We've also got some Halberdiers in the back, a Light Wizard, Karl Franz, Silver Bullets, and 2 units of Free Company, 2 units of Reichsguard, another Halberdier, and yeah, I believe that's pretty much everything. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick it into full gear. Now my opponent, you would think, has a pretty nice commanding hill position here, but if you actually zoom in and look at the line of sight of this artillery piece, it can't actually see down the slope, and that's one of the sort of misleading things about maps where you start with a big hill. You have to make sure that your cannon actually has an open line of sight, so like it probably needed to be a little bit further forward, and then it wouldn't have as effective use of its range. But you can see right now it's actually not able to fire because of the slope of the hill. My units advancing here are going to be safe from that artillery fire, so pretty good, favorable situation for me in that respect. My opponent was probably hoping to utilize that artillery pretty well. You guys have seen me use this Hammer of Witches pretty effectively, yeah, these Reiksguard coming around in the front looking for a potential place to just charge straight through since I don't have too many fast attack units to respond. However, we are going to get the Norscan Ice Wolves and the Hounds coming in here, and they're going to get a couple hits and apply this Frostbite here. These Reiksguard are going to start taking some damage in the rear. Meanwhile, Norscan Ice Wolves trying to create an opening over on this side. I didn't spot these Halberdiers quite in time, but we are going to get an attack order in them, obviously, since the Norscan Warhounds don't count as large units. Bonus versus large won't necessarily apply there. The Ice Wolves, on the other hand, do count as large, so an important distinction between the two. You can see those Reiksguard have taken a lot of damage, though, and I didn't quite catch it, but there was a brutal Sea Fang down that front line that just cut through a ton of those state troops. You can see Wulfrik already up to 77 kills without even having gotten into combat yet, so that's the power of the double wind spell. And the nice thing about Sea Fang is it has almost no giveaway, like in terms of there's no template that pops up or anything. The only thing that really gives it away is the little portal pops up where the boat comes out, and it's not that long of an animation, so it's actually pretty easy to miss that it's happening completely. But yeah, you can see the Hound's going to be running in here. Balefiend looks like also running in here, getting a very nice Penumbral Pendulum right down the line. Karl Franz is going to get hit by that enfeebling foe and the Hunter of Champions here in just a moment when we get Wulfrik on him. Yeah, you can see the lines are collapsing very, very quickly for the Empire, and this is one of the things is even like pretty good defensive units like Spearmen with Shields, relatively cost-effective, you know, defensive style units, will just get collapsed so quickly by Norsca. They're one of the best rush factions in the game. And they're fast and they're brutally efficient in terms of their combat stats. Not very nice overcast net here catching some of my units, but unfortunately it's not going to be able to spring this Empire Captain free. A lot of state troops routing away at this point. Hammer of Witches is still online, but yeah, at this point a banishment in this pocket would be really nice. We're just keeping the Reiksguard busy out on the flanks with the Hounds and so on while we clean up the center engagement. Another Sea Fang just going down there. Just barely missed it, but cleaned up quite a few units in that front line. And yeah, at this point, Berserkers and so on going to be pushing through. So we'll grab some cinematic action of these Empire artillery crewmen trying to defend the guns, Sigmar's Sons, and what's left of them, and the Silver Bullets also fighting in here. And yeah, Reiksguard going to come around, try and get a rear charge, but we'll respond with the Miststalkers. Miststalkers don't have a bonus versus large like the Famir with great weapons do, but of course their armor piercing and great combat stats means they'll definitely take out those Reiksguard. So at this point, it is going to be mass rout for the Empire. Karl Franz was taken down by Wulfrik. He's actually routing off over here, and it's going to be victory for Norsca once again. So yeah, my opponent's build was pretty decent. The terrain there was a little bit rough. The two things that I would change is to cut these Halberdiers. Halberdiers are just not cost effective, so I would definitely cut these two. Elite tier halberds in general are good against the Norskins, but because Halberdiers don't have enough armor, they tend to just get cut through by things like Marauders and Berserkers and so on. So I'm really not a fan in this matchup. I think it's better to probably go with guns, or maybe bring some more heavy cavalry, maybe some Demigryph Knights with halberds. Another point is if you're going to bring Karl Franz, you almost have to bring Lore of Life, because you need to invest keeping him alive. I'm also not really a big fan of the Empire Captain in any circumstance. I am going to be making a video soon about the Empire Captain, the Paladin, and some other heroes I think should get some changes to make them more useful. But yeah, I'm not honestly a big fan of the Empire Captain. Other than that, I mean, his army definitely had some good elements. The state troop front line is pretty decent, although I'd probably cut these two swordsmen just down to the spearmen with shields to give you a little bit extra funds. Reiksguard are always a good pick. Free Company are pretty good in this matchup as well. They can be. Silver Bullets can be also pretty good in this matchup, but the terrain disfavoring the Hammer of Witches, although it may seem favorable at first glance, the terrain definitely played a pretty big factor there. So you can see at the end of the day, 127 for Wulfrik between the two Sea Fangs, 54 for the Balefiend, just cleaning up shop with that double wind. It's a very, very powerful heroic core. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What's your experience been with Norsca so far? I know a lot of you guys have been out there in the wild playing battles, getting some experience under your belts. So what do you think? What playstyles have you noticed? I definitely haven't seen as many skin wolves as we did in Game 1. I think they're not quite as strong as they used to be. But overall, I do think that Norsca's in a pretty good place. Let me know what you think. If you do like this sort of comment, if you do like the sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, all that jazz. Yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.